There is a difference between filing for protection and receiving it. Sometimes, it's measured in the time between a document entering a system and a judge being available to read it. 3 days, 72 hours between submission and review, between action and response, between a protective order filed electronically on Christmas morning and the Monday when courts would reopen. December 25th, December 26th, December 27th, December 28th. A woman filed on the first day. She was killed on the 4th. Courts reopened on the 5th, 1 day too late. Electronic filing systems accept documents every day of the year. They time-stamp submissions, generate confirmation numbers, create the appearance of motion. But documents sit in queues, and queues require human review. And human review requires humans to be working. Marion County, Indiana, observes standard holiday closures. December 28, 2025. Christmas, courts closed. Judges unavailable. Reasonable schedule. Nobody violated policy. And yet, a protective order petition sat in that queue. It detailed a year of escalation. January, property destruction. November, physical violence. December 10th, continued aggression. December 24th, weapon use. Threats recorded on a smartphone. The woman who filed it had legal training. 8 years as a legal assistant in law firms and retirement funds. She understood protective orders. She understood documentation. She understood systems. She filed correctly. She did everything advocates tell domestic violence victims to do. Document the abuse. Record the threats. Meet in public places. Seek legal protection. She filed on Christmas morning because she couldn't wait 3 more days. 3 days later, her 10-year-old daughter called 911. He had a gun and he shot their mother. Then he fled the scene in a gray Toyota Tundra. Present tense, clinical precision. A child reporting her mother's murder with the specificity of someone who understood emergencies. REQUIRE the exact information. All 4 children were there. Ages 10, 14, 17, 19. For witnesses to the end of their mother's life and the moment their father became something else. The protective order was still sitting in the electronic queue. Filed but not reviewed. Submitted but not signed. In the system but not enforceable. December 25th, December 26th, December 27th, December 28th. Courts would reopen December 29th, 1 day too late. This is the story of that gap. The space between filing and protection. Between doing everything right and dying anyway. Between a system that accepts documents every day of the year and the human judges who review them only when they're working. It's the story of Jeri Mains and the protective order that never came. On maps, the southeast side of Indianapolis looks unremarkable. A cluster of quiet streets, curved cul-de-sacs, driveways leading up to modest homes where cars come and go with the school year, the tax season, the rhythm of ordinary life. One of those streets is Meadow Bend Lane. In the afternoon, delivery trucks drift past, trimmed lawns. In the evening, porch lights click on in staggered sequence. From the outside, it looks like the type of place where arguments stay behind closed doors and the loudest sound is usually a garage door opening. Nothing about the street itself suggests that a court calendar, a holiday schedule, and an online filing system will end up mattering. Inside one of those homes, a woman built a life that, on paper, looked stable. She worked as a community association manager and later as director of public relations for a property management company. She handled residents' concerns, budgets, board meetings. She also prepared tax returns as a senior analyst during the busy season. Before that, she'd spent years as a legal assistant, drafting documents, interacting with courts, learning how systems are supposed to protect people. She served on homeowners association boards. She ran a small business. She finished a degree at a local university, added a business minor, and earned a certificate in organizational leadership. Most people who knew her saw a capable professional, a mother of four who kept moving forward. The kind of person you might email when the parking lot lights were out, or when the neighborhood newsletter needed a calm voice. At home, there were four children for different stages of life. A 10-year-old still in the rhythm of elementary school, a 14-year-old on the edge of high school, a 17-year-old close to adulthood, a 19-year-old already stepping into it. For ages that meant for sets of schedules, for sets of needs, for futures being built from that one address on Meadowbend Lane. Their father lived there too. Public records list his name, his physical description, his booking number. They do not list an occupation. They do not describe his day-to-day life. Outside the justice system, he appears as a shadow at the edge of her professional profile. Present in family photos but absent from resumes and business directories. From the street, the house looked like any other home balancing work and family, school and holidays. You could drive past and see a car in the driveway, a porch light on a timer, maybe a seasonal decoration around the front door. Nothing in that view tells you which house contains a protective order petition waiting to be filed. What we know now is that 2025 was not an ordinary year inside that home. It began with a broken truck window. In January, during an argument, he allegedly punched out the driver's side window of her truck. The glass belonged to her. The force came from him. No one was hospitalized. No police report has been publicly described. From the outside, it might have looked like a bad night. From the inside, something had quietly shifted. Property can be replaced. Glass can be swept up. But in domestic violence research, the target matters. When anger lands on things a partner owns, it often signals a willingness to move closer. That moment in January did not look like a turning point from the street. It looked like a repair bill, maybe a quiet story about a parking lot mishap, or a stone thrown up from the road. Inside the house, a line had been crossed that would eventually find its way into a court document. Months later, in a petition marked confidential, that window would be one of the first entries in a timeline of escalation. At the time, it was just broken glass. The neighbors saw a truck with a missing window, They did not see the conversation that followed. They did not hear whatever explanation was offered to the children. They did not know that this would become the first documented incident in a year-long pattern. From the street, Meadowbend Lane still looked the same. One house now carried a story its exterior could not tell. Patterns often reveal themselves only in retrospect. What looks like a single bad day in January becomes something else by November. For months, the house on Meadowbend Lane seemed to hold its quiet. But inside, the intervals between disruptions were shrinking and the targets were changing. In domestic violence escalation, psychologists look for a specific trajectory from property to person to weapons. The broken truck window in January targeted property. 10 months later, in November, the target shifted. During an argument, a fist connected with a face. A nose bled, bruises formed. The violence had migrated from an object she owned to the body she lived in. This escalation is significant. Facial injuries cannot be easily hidden. They carry a communicative weight. Beyond pain, they mark the victim visibly. They broadcast dominance. We don't know what happened in the 10 months between the window and the punch. We don't know if there were apologies, promises, periods of calm. We only know that by November, the physical boundary had been breached. Then the timeline began to compress. On December 10th, less than a month after the facial assault, property became the target again. A computer was punched during a fight. A cup of hot chocolate was sent flying, landing on her. This pattern alternating between objects and people maintains unpredictability. It keeps everyone in the house guessing. Is today a day for broken glass or broken skin? By late December, the acceleration was unmistakable. Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2025. She made a choice that suggests she understood exactly how dangerous her situation had become. She asked to meet him not at home, not in the living room where children might be listening, or in the kitchen where arguments had happened before. She chose a parking lot, specifically a court parking lot, a public space likely monitored, surrounded by the machinery of justice, even if the building was closed for the holiday. There, she told him she wanted a divorce. Research shows that the moment a partner announces separation is statistically the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship. The threat to autonomy often triggers an escalation in control tactics. That afternoon, the escalation was immediate. Later that same day, back in the privacy of their world, kitchen tongs were used as a weapon. An everyday utensil became an instrument of assault. A laceration to more bruising. But the physical violence was now accompanied by something else. Threats. According to documents she would later file, he threatened to kill himself in front of her and their children. Psychologists recognize this as a coercive control tactic. A public suicide threat made with an audience of family members isn't just an expression of despair. It binds the family together in a shared trauma. It says, if you leave, this is what you will have to watch. This is what you will be responsible for. She didn't just listen. She recorded the conversation on her phone. She was gathering evidence, documenting, building a case. And there was another layer, one that had been present for a long time. Threats against the children, threats against the family pets. On numerous occasions, the petition would later state, "This is perhaps the most paralyzing form of control. Direct violence against a partner is one thing. Threats against children create a different kind of leverage. They make leaving feel not like an escape, but a risk assessment. If I go, who protects them?" By Christmas morning, she had made her calculation. The pattern was clear. Property, person, weapons, threats against the children, suicide threats in front of the family. The frequency had moved from months to weeks to hours. She couldn't wait for the holiday weekend to end. On December 25th, while families opened gifts and courts remained closed, she logged onto a computer. She opened the electronic filing system for Marion County. She typed out the timeline, the window. The punch, the computer. The tongs, the threats. She clicked submit. The system accepted the document. It generated a confirmation. It placed her petition in a digital queue. She had done the hardest thing. She had named the violence. She had asked for help. But asking for help and receiving it are two different things. She returned to the house on Meadowbend Lane. The children were there. He was there. The holiday weekend stretched out ahead of them. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 3 days of waiting. 3 days where she believed she had taken action. 3 days where a document sat unread on a server, waiting for a judge who wasn't there. Sandy. December 28th. The holiday weekend was almost over. The courts would reopen the next morning. Inside the house on Meadowbend Lane, the waiting was coming to an end. At some point that day, we don't know the exact hour, something shifted. According to statements later given to detectives, a safe in the home was opened. A gun was removed. It wasn't hidden or hurried. It was retrieved. This detail, the retrieval of a weapon hours before it was used, suggests a gap. A space where a decision was made, or perhaps where a possibility was weighed. The children saw it happen. They noticed the weapon. They noticed the change in atmosphere. We don't know what words were exchanged that afternoon. We don't know if the filing on Christmas Day was mentioned. We don't know if the argument that started was new, or simply a continuation of the conversation that began in the parking lot for days earlier. What we know is that by early afternoon, the private conflict inside the home spilled out into the open. At 2:17 p.m., a call came into the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. It wasn't a neighbor reporting a disturbance. It wasn't a passerby who heard something wrong. The caller was a child, a 10-year-old girl. Her voice on the line was described later as precise, clinical. She didn't just ask for help. She reported exactly what had happened. He had a gun and he shot their mother, Jeri Mains. Then he fled the scene in a gray Toyota Tundra. Specifics: names, weapon, vehicle description, direction of travel. Information that a first responder needs. Information that a child should never have to know, let alone deliver. All for children were there. The 10-year-old, the 14-year-old. The 17-year-old, the 19-year-old. They had lived through the broken windows, the facial injuries, the threats, the tension of a holiday weekend spent walking on eggshells. And now they stood in the aftermath. Their mother lay in the driveway. Emergency responders arrived. They found Jeri. They found the children. They found the shell casing small brass, markers of an irreversible moment. Jeri was transported to Escalating Hospital. It is the city's Level 1 trauma center, the place where the most critical cases go when there is still a chance. But sometimes, intervention arrives too late. Jeri was pronounced deceased at the hospital. Back on Meadowbend Lane, the scene was being secured. Crime scene tape went up around the home that had looked so normal from the street. Police alert. A gray Toyota Tundra, a man named Cecil. He hadn't gone far, about 4.5 miles away. Near the intersection of Thompson Road and Lakesedge Boulevard, an officer spotted the truck. It wasn't a high-speed chase. He wasn't running for the state line. He was just there at a traffic stop was conducted. He pulled over. He was taken into custody without incident. Inside the truck, officers found a Sig Sauer .380 handgun. By evening, he was sitting in an interview room at the homicide office. Detectives came in to ask the questions that hang over every case, like this. Why today? Why now? What happened in those final minutes? He looked at them. He invoked his right to an attorney. He said nothing else. Silence. While he sat in that room, for children were being placed with relatives. Their lives had been cleaved in two. Before 17 p.m., they had parents, a home, a difficult but familiar reality. After 2:17 p.m., they were witnesses in a homicide investigation against their father. And somewhere in the electronic system of the Marion County courts, a document was still waiting. The protective order petition, it was still in the queue, still unread, still waiting for Monday morning. Jeri had filed it to prevent exactly what had just happened. She had documented the escalation to stop the final act. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work. It accepted the filing. It timestamped the entry. It held the data. It just didn't protect the person. The gap between filing and safety had closed. Not because a judge signed an order, but because there was no longer anyone left to protect. When homicide detectives arrived at Meadowbend Lane, the case appeared, at first glance, to be tragically simple. They had a suspect in custody. They had the weapon. They had for eyewitnesses who happened to be the victims, children. They even had the 911 call identifying the shooter by name. In criminal investigations, this is usually where the questions stop. Who, what, where, when, all answered before the sun went down. But as investigators began to peel back the layers of Jeri and Cecil Mains' life, the simplicity dissolved. They discovered the document, the protective order petition filed on Christmas morning, when detectives contacted the Marion County Clerk's office. The petition was there, but it was marked confidential and it was unreviewed. A judge later confirmed to media that he never saw it. His office was closed from December 24th through the 28th. He physically could not have reviewed it. This discovery changed the nature of the investigation. It wasn't just a shooting anymore. It was the culmination of a documented, pleading timeline. The petition didn't just ask for help. It laid out the roadmap of what was coming. It detailed the January window, the November assault, the December escalation. It was a diary of a murder in slow motion, and it raised a haunting question that evidence lockers can't answer. Did Cecil know? Did he know she had filed? There is no record of the petition being served. It couldn't be served because it hadn't been signed. But did she tell him? Did she warn him? If he knew, the shooting looks like a final act of control eliminating her before the legal system could intervene. If he didn't know, the shooting looks like the natural end point of the trajectory she had already identified. We don't know. He hasn't spoken. This silence creates a vacuum that evidence alone cannot fill. The children ages 10, 14, 17, 19 were interviewed by forensic specialists. This is a delicate, painful process. These aren't just witnesses. They are survivors of the same man they are testifying against. They have to describe their father killing their mother. They told detectives about the gun retrieval. Earlier that day, they said, "That phrase earlier that day dash lingers. It suggests time. A gap between taking the weapon and using it. If he retrieved the gun hours before the argument, it suggests premeditation. Planning, waiting for the moment. If he retrieved it minutes before, it suggests rapid escalation. Without his statement, we can only look at his actions. He drove for 0.5 miles. He stopped. He waited. Behavioral analysts look at post-defense conduct for clues about mindset. Flight usually implies guilt, but driving for miles and stopping, that suggests something else. Confusion, hesitation, a plan to go further that fell apart, or a realization that there was nowhere left to go. The investigation also revealed the competence paradox. Jeri wasn't isolated in the traditional sense. She wasn't unemployed or disconnected. She was a director of public relations. She was a community leader. She managed neighborhoods. She understood rules and enforcement. She had legal training. She did everything a competent, resourceful person is supposed to do. She didn't ignore the signs. She didn't hide. She took official, legal action. And yet, the result was the same as if she had done nothing. This creates a deep discomfort. We like to believe that systems work for people who know how to use them. We like to believe that if a victim is educated, employed, and proactive, they can engineer their own safety. Jeri proves that is not always true. The investigation found no gaps in her effort, only in the system's response. Currently, Cecil Raymond Mains sits in the Marion County Jail. Booking number 0086-4890. He is charged with murder under Indiana. Code 35 for 211. He is held without bond. The legal process is moving forward. Prosecutors will likely argue that the presence of children, the prior domestic violence, and the use of a firearm are aggravating factors. They will build a case on the physical evidence and the children's testimony. But the legal charges clarify only the legal reality. They don't answer why a system that accepts electronic filings 24/7 has no mechanism to read them 24/7. They don't explain why a 10-year-old girl had to be the one to call 911. They don't explain what happened in that house on Sunday afternoon that turned a tense standoff into a homicide. Some questions will be answered at trial, others are lost. The audio recording Jeri made on Christmas Eve, the one where he threatened suicide, exists as digital evidence. It captures a voice, a mood, a moment. But it cannot explain the mind of the man who spoke. And the protective order petition remains in the system. A permanent record of a request that was received, time-stamped, and ultimately irrelevant. It is evidence now, not protection. Segment 6, Resolution, Aftermath and Reflection. Word count, 618. In the criminal justice system, cases like this have a defined path. Arrest, arraignment, trial, verdict. Sentencing. Cecil Mains has been charged with murder. He is held without bond. The legal machinery is functioning exactly as it is designed to function after a crime has been committed. There will be hearings. There will be motions. There will likely be a trial where prosecutors present the weapon, the shell casings, and the timeline. Eventually, there will be a judgment. But legal resolution is not the same as human resolution. A verdict answers guilty or not guilty. It does not answer why. It does not fix what broke on Meadowbend Lane. The 4 children ages 10, 14, 17, 19 have been absorbed by relatives. A GoFundMe campaign launched by a family friend raised over $50,000 in days. The money is for counseling, for legal fees, for funeral costs, for long-term stability. Money can buy therapy. It can buy clothes for school. It can pay for a new place to live. But it cannot buy back the version of the world those children lived in before December 28th. They are now orphans of a specific, tragic kind. One parent is gone forever. The other is gone to a cell. They will carry the memory of that Sunday afternoon for the rest of their lives. The argument, the gun, the shots, the silence. The 10-year-old will grow up knowing she was the one who called for help. The older children will wonder if they could have done something differently. This is the generational debris of domestic homicide. It doesn't end with a gavel bang. It echoes through decades. For the community, Jeri's death has forced a conversation about the systems we rely on. Advocates in Indianapolis have pointed out the dangerous gap. Leaving is the most dangerous time, they say. We know this. The data proves it. Yet, the system maintains a holiday schedule. There has been no announcement of a policy change. No new protocol for emergency judicial review during Christmas or Thanksgiving. Next year, the courts will close again. Electronic filings will continue to be accepted. and petitions will likely sit in queues again. Jeri Mains is remembered by her friends as a woman with an infectious smile, a fierce love for her family, and a drive to build community. She spent her life managing things: neighborhoods, budgets, tax returns, legal documents. She managed everything she could control, but she couldn't control the calendar. She couldn't control a system that separates submission from review. And she couldn't control the person she lived with. Some questions in this case are settled. We know who did, we know how. We know when, but the question of what if remains. What if the courts had been open on December 26th? What if a judge had signed that order on Friday morning? What if a sheriff's deputy had served it on Friday night? Would it have stopped him? Or would it have accelerated him? Would a piece of paper have acted as a shield or a match? We will never know. We only know that the paper never left the digital queue. Jeri died believing she had taken action. She died having done the right things. And in the end, doing the right things wasn't enough to save her. Some stories end with answers. This one ends with a timestamp, December 25th, 2025. A protective order filed, December 28th, 2025. A life ended, December 29th, 2025. A court reopened. The dates tell their own story. A story about timing, about gaps, about the space where safety is supposed to live, but sometimes doesn't. Jeri Mains lived a life of competence. She understood how the world worked. She understood that when you have a problem, you file the paperwork. You follow the rules. You use the tools available to you. Her tragedy wasn't a failure of understanding. It was a failure of the tools. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality about the systems we trust. We believe the actions we will be safi. We believe that filing means protection. But a filing is just a request. And protection requires a protector. When the protector is on holiday, the request is just data. For children are now living with relatives. They are starting a new year and a new life without the two people who defined their world. Their mother is gone, their father is awaiting trial. And somewhere in Indianapolis, on a server in a government building, that petition likely still exists. A digital ghost of a plea that was heard by a computer, but not by a judge. It stands as a testament to the limits of procedure. We build systems to handle the messines of human conflict. We create forms and schedules and queues. We try to organize chaos into manageable legal processes. But violence doesn't observe business hours. Crisis doesn't respect holidays. And sometimes, the most dangerous place to be is in the waiting room. The house on Meadowbend Lane is quiet now. The police tape comes down. The neighbors go back to work. The delivery trucks drift past. Life resumes its ordinary rhythm. But for anyone who knows where to look, the silence on that street is heavy. It is the silence of a 3-day weekend that lasted forever. Some questions were answered in court. Others were never meant to be.